September 7th, 1943. Dear General, I'm so glad you made it to London all right. I just received your telegram, and it gave me a great deal of relief to know you arrived safely. I also just heard word from Ruby. You will move her if danger gets too close, won't you? I think she's met someone, by the way. He sounds delightful, but you'd better pay her a visit if things get too serious. We can't have some Twitter-pated patient of hers falling in love and sweeping our jewel away from us without doing some discreet investigating into his background. I won't be able to let her go unless he's top-notch. Speaking of top-notch, I never thought I would be one of those poor girls that got herself so knocked for a loop over a boy. But General, Corporal Charles Henderson Burke is no boy. He's a full-grown man, and he has me heart and soul. You remember how Uncle Abe sent me down to Oak Ridge, Tennessee, back in July? He wanted me to check up on a few leads Lionheart gave us. Well, I never told you, but Lionheart begged a tiny favor in return for his information. It required me to take a small detour down to Camp Forest in Tullahoma while I was in the state. Don't be angry. It was only a few hours out of the way, and it really was the least I could do after all the risks he's taken for Uncle Sam. Anyway, I had no idea that doing a favor for someone I've only met once would alter my life so entirely. But meeting the likes of Charlie while I was at Camp Forest has definitely sent my life into a tailspin. I actually think I love him. No, I know I do. I've only known him for a month and a half now, but I'm certain. And here's the proof. I traded my last pair of new nylon stockings in order to get my hands on some maple syrup and honey to make a batch of coconut pecan tarts for him. I mailed them to him last month. You will love this recipe, by the way. But from now on, I'm going to have to paint my legs with liquid stockings, just like all those girls were doing in San Diego before we left. I ask you, if that's not love, what is it? But in all seriousness, General, I genuinely can't imagine my life without him. Charlie and I spent the entire day together on Saturday. He was trying to ease me into things by pretending we could be friends after all the spoken and unspoken that's already passed between us. I'm proud to say I quickly put a stop to that. Yes, I'll admit, your daughter was a bit more forward than she's ever been in matters of the heart. I may or may not have kissed him hello, rather than waiting for him to kiss me the traditional goodbye. I know this makes me sound like a brazen hussy, but General, it's the war. One must take advantage of every opportunity. No time for wasting golden moments and whatnot. Charlie picked me up at my hotel Saturday morning, and we took a picnic out to Machine Falls. It is so lovely there. After spending so much time in D.C., it was swell to get out and into the wild for a while, to hear the sound of water running again, even if it's not the Pacific Ocean. We explored some of the trails and the falls and just talked and talked. That's one of the things I really love about Charlie. He's reserved, but not afraid to talk. Oh, and he makes me laugh. Good golly, he makes me laugh. It felt so wonderful to feel like a regular girl being courted by a regular boy for a few hours. In that beautiful place, it was almost possible to forget that you're in London with the threat of bombs dropping all around, and Ruby is off in Africa assisting doctors in sawing off limbs and removing metal from our poor boys' blown-up bodies. Charlie does that for me, though. He helps me forget all the horror I've seen. He helps me believe life can be beautiful again. He helps me believe there's a future, and that if he's in it, I might just get a happily ever after when all this is over. That's certainly more than I was allowing myself to believe in before I met him. The wonderful and yet frightening thing is, I think Charlie and I might be of the same mind about this. On Saturday, after roaming the trails at Machine Falls for a while, we were sitting eating our picnic under a beautiful giant sycamore tree when Charlie asked me what my plans are after the war. I told him I hoped to return to Berkeley and finish my degree in physics. He grew very quiet and still at that, but after a moment, he took my hand in his, covered it with his other hand, and looked deep into my eyes. Honestly, General, I didn't know my heart could do things like it did then. And then he asked me if I'd like company when I returned to California. This time I went still. I knew what he was asking, of course, and I can't tell you how badly I wanted to simply shout, "Yes," and kiss him again right then and there. But instead, as I'm sure you'll be very proud, my dratted logic and cool reasoning took over, and I instinctively sought to lighten the mood by telling him that yes, I did, which was why I hoped to purchase a puppy on my way home, because I happen to be severely allergic to cats. He, of course, recovered dashingly and laughed. But he was serious, and so was I. Not about the cats, but shouting yes. Is it possible to know so soon? I know you've said you knew the moment you saw Mama, that you knew she was the one simply because you couldn't imagine your life moving forward without her in it. But how does one make plans during total war? Especially when Charlie and I are both very active participants in it. Charlie didn't bring up the topic of making things permanent between us again during our time together. I think he might have thought he frightened me a little. But that's the most peculiar part. He didn't frighten me at all. It truly seemed like the most natural topic for us to discuss. Not like all those war marriages going on. I know right now so many our age are diving headfirst into marriage the moment they meet someone they're even the slightest bit attracted to. But you know me. I move slower than molasses in winter where relationships are concerned. Remember when James Hart and I were courting back in San Diego? Do you remember how I would have nightmares of him, asking me to marry him? You remember? The one where he was proposing to me on a cliff at Torrey Pines. And the moment he pulled out the ring, I went berserk and pushed him over the edge. That one was toward the end of our relationship, when he kept pestering me with proposals. But the nightmares only became more frequent the longer we courted, and he wasn't the only one. In fact, I've had nightmares about every man who's ever shown interest in me, almost from the very beginning of our relationships. Well, General, this has not been the case with Charlie. I haven't had a single nightmare. As a matter of fact, I can only seem to dream about our future together, or our children, or our future home and where I'll hang Mama's paintings when we're settled there. I even dreamt of him meeting Mama, and she wholeheartedly approved. I'm not superstitious enough to believe in signs, but that has to mean something, doesn't it? All I know is that when Charlie was walking me back to my hotel Saturday night, we arrived and he opened the door to the hotel for me. In that moment, I knew that of all the doors I've had open for me in my life, there was something very different this time. I felt so cherished, the way I always dreamed of feeling when I saw you and Mama sharing a moment together, when you didn't know I was watching. I never questioned your love for her. To this day, I know you haven't been able to marry another because of how much you loved her. Well, Charles Henderson Burke makes me feel like that, and I want him for my very own, even more than I wanted Mama's stained glass turtle doves you gave to Ruby for her 12th birthday, instead of to me for my 14th, even though I'd been begging for them all year. You thought I'd forgotten, didn't you? In all seriousness, though, you know I never ask for guidance from you, and you volunteer it even less. Your life and example have always been guidance enough for me. Today, however, I'm writing to ask for counsel from the best and wisest man I know. Please advise at your earliest convenience on how to proceed. All my love and a kiss, Audrey Rose. P.S. Uncle Abe says he has more work for me to do. He's asked me to follow up on what I learned during my trip to Oak Ridge. Something really important. He said it was usually only something he would entrust you with. But since you're in London and I'm here, I'm the next best option. It's definitely important enough, so I've agreed. American Grand Union Telegram. 1629 Columbia Road, Northwest, Washington, D.C. 20009. Washington, D.C. September 15th, a.m. Ms. Audrey Rose Drawlinger, Washington, D.C. Sounds like you already know your mind, my girl. You know how I feel about the men in that family. The end of the war couldn't bring you a finer one. Full steam ahead and courage, my Rose, courage. General Duke P. Drawlinger. P.S. Whatever Abe has you working on, be very careful. Even I don't know what's happening down in Tennessee. P.P.S. And I'm still sorry about the turtle doves. You know how sorry. But I couldn't very well take them back while our Ruby sobbed her tender heart out over them. The most battle-hardened soldier would have cowered. 10:25 a.m.